Story 1. I was walking through silent, perfect snow when a child laughed high up in a tree. No footprints below. Then he jumped from 30 feet and started chasing me. That was just the beginning. The soft crunch of fresh snow under my boots felt almost meditative, like the world was holding its breath. I've never been a hardcore hiker, but there's something irresistible about a sudden snowfall. It pulls me outside no matter how late it is or how tired I feel. That night it happened in the remote trails of the Evergreen Ridge, deep in northern Washington. I lived on the quiet edge of a small logging town surrounded by endless pine. The forecast had promised clear skies all evening, but as I sat in my room flipping through a book, the flakes started falling hard and fast, like someone had flipped a switch in the sky. My head was still a little fuzzy from the night before. A few too many drinks with friends at the local bar, but the cold air called louder than the lingering headache. I threw on layers, thermal shirt, thick sweater, parka, gloves, hat, scarf, jumped in the car and drove to a lesser-known trailhead that's almost always deserted, especially after dark. When I stepped out, the world was already muffled. Snow piling thick on the hood of my car, streetlights barely cutting through the swirling white haze. I breathed it in deep, sharp, pine-scented cold, and started walking, drawn deeper into the woods with every step, chasing that rare, almost sacred feeling of total solitude. After 20 minutes or so, my legs had warmed up, my breathing steadied, and I stopped to take it all in. Moonlight filtered through the heavy branches, turning the snow into glowing silver sheets. It was perfect, peaceful, almost holy. Then the voice cut through like a knife. "Hey there!" A boy's voice, light, innocent, playful. My heart lurched into my throat so hard I felt it in my ears. I spun around, scanning the dark shapes between the trees. Nothing, just snow and silence. I told myself it was the wind playing tricks, or maybe an animal sound I'd misheard. But seconds later it came again, clearer, closer, almost right next to me. "Hey!" The sound bounced strangely off the trees, impossible to pin down. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I called out, my voice shaking more than I wanted to admit. "Who's there? Hello?" No answer, only the soft patter of falling snow. I was already turning back toward the car, every instinct screaming to leave, when it returned, teasing, almost giggling. "Look up, silly!" I looked up. There, perched casually on a thick branch of a towering fir, at least 15, maybe 20 feet off the ground, sat a small boy, no older than 8. Red puffy jacket, wool hat with a pom-pom, legs swinging back and forth like he was on a playground swing. How the hell? The lowest branch was way out of reach, the trunk slick with ice and completely smooth. No way up without climbing gear or wings. For a split second, relief washed over me. A real kid, not my imagination, finally cracking under the isolation. But then I noticed the snow around the base of the tree, untouched, pristine, not a single footprint, not even a scuff mark. He'd been sitting up there for at least 45 minutes, probably longer, in sub-zero cold that would freeze most adults in half an hour. My stomach twisted into a knot. I walked closer, eyes locked on him the whole time, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, kid, how did you get up there? Are you okay? Are you lost?" He grinned, too wide, too stiff, like someone who'd seen smiles in pictures, but never quite mastered them. "It's my secret," he said cheerfully, and kept staring with those bright, unblinking eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. I felt the first real wave of dread crawl up my spine, cold and heavy. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. But I still asked, almost pleading, "Come on, let me help you down. It's freezing out here." Your parents must be worried." He stood up on the branch, wobbling just a little for effect, then shouted with pure glee, "Watch this!" And he simply leaned back and fell, 30 feet straight down. I screamed, a raw, involuntary sound that tore out of me. He hit the ground hard, a sickening, wet thud that echoed in my chest and made my knees buckle. I was sure he was dead. No one survives that. Broken spine, shattered skull, done. I ran toward him, sinking knee-deep into the drifts with every step, heart hammering with horror, guilt, and disbelief. Before I could reach him, he popped up like a jack-in-the-box, shook snow off his jacket like it was dust, and sprinted deeper into the woods, laughing. High, wild, mocking laughter that bounced off the trees like broken glass. I stood frozen for a heartbeat, breath coming in ragged gasps. Then, God knows why, I ran after him. I'm not brave. In any normal situation, I would have bolted for the car and never looked back. But something snapped inside me that night. Shock, rage, some stupid, primal need to understand what the hell was happening, to prove it wasn't real or to make it stop. I followed his tiny footprints, lungs burning from the cold air, branches whipping my face and leaving stinging welts. His laughter rang out ahead, always just out of reach, taunting me, turning the chase into a nightmare game where I was the prey. My legs felt heavier with every stride, snow sucking at my boots like quicksand. Sweat froze on my skin under the layers. My mind raced. This can't be happening. He should be dead. He should be screaming in pain. Why is he laughing? What is he? Every few seconds I glanced back, terrified I'd see him right behind me, grinning. The woods seemed to close in, trees leaning closer, shadows stretching longer. As I passed under a low-hanging pine, something slammed into my back with surprising force. Small arms locked around my neck like iron bands, nails raking deep into my skin. We crashed down together into the powder. He was on top of me, clawing, shrieking like a feral animal, his breath hot and sour against my ear. Blood ran warm and sticky down my collar, soaking into my sweater. Pain exploded across my neck and shoulders. I thrashed wildly, grabbed at him blindly, fingers slipping on his jacket. Finally, with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, I managed to hurl him off over my shoulder. He hit the ground with a soft thump, bounced up instantly, and vanished into the dark, still laughing. That same high, endless giggle. This time I didn't chase. I knelt there shaking uncontrollably, hands slick with my own blood, neck throbbing in time with my pulse. The world tilted and spun. I pressed my scarf tight against the wounds, feeling the warmth seep through the fabric, and staggered back toward the trailhead. Every shadow felt alive, every rustle a promise of more claws. The drive to the hospital is mostly a blur. Adrenaline crashing, blood loss making everything hazy, panic clawing at the back of my mind. I remember stumbling into the ER, nurses rushing over, the sting of antiseptic, the beep of monitors. They cleaned the gashes, shallow but ragged like animal scratches, and stitched me up with dozens of tiny sutures. The doctor kept asking, "Are you sure it was a child? This looks like something else." I nodded numbly, too exhausted to argue. Police came next. They took my statement over and over, eyebrows raised higher each time I repeated the impossible details. One officer even asked if I'd been drinking. Again, I wanted to scream at them. Days later, they told me the search found only my footprints leading in and out. No child's tracks, no sign of struggle, no blood except mine. Nothing. I went back myself a week later when the storm had finally passed. Fresh snow had buried everything under a clean white blanket. I searched for hours, following what I thought was the right path, calling out stupidly into the silence. Nothing. Not even a broken branch. That night still feels like a tear in reality. A moment when the world glitched and showed me something it wasn't supposed to. The scars on my neck have faded to thin white lines, but they itch sometimes, especially when snow starts falling. And every time they do, I hear that giggle again, faint and far away, waiting. Story 2. Picture this. You're trudging through a brutal snowstorm to surprise your best friend when you witness a snowplow veer off the road and crash, only to find the cab completely empty, engine still roaring, and a desperate cry for help echoing from the darkness, getting impossibly closer. I was 19, home alone during winter break in our big, isolated house on the edge of a small Alberta village. Fields and thick woods stretched out in every direction. Beautiful in summer, lonely as hell in winter. That week, a monster blizzard rolled in, dumping over a foot of snow overnight. Roads became impassable by noon. Power flickered, internet died, boredom set in hard. My friend Lucas lived a couple miles away. We'd hung out the day before, so I knew he was stuck at home too. In a burst of dumb teenage inspiration, I decided I'd walk over and show up at his door looking like a walking snowman. Hilarious, right? Looking back, it was reckless. At the time, it felt like an adventure. The first stretch was almost magical. Snow had eased, moonlight turned everything silver, my boots crunched softly. Then I hit the long, empty section. No houses, just dark trees crowding both sides of the road. The silence pressed in. I suddenly felt very small and very alone. Then headlights appeared ahead, a big county snowplow, moving slow. Relief washed over me. Civilization, until it jerked hard right, veered off the pavement, and smashed into the tree line with a muffled crunch. Headlights stabbed into the woods, engine still growling. I ran toward it, heart pounding. Someone could be hurt. I had to help. The snow was deep, slowing me down, but I pushed through. When I reached the wreck, the plow was buried nose first in an old oak, lights blazing, wipers still going. I climbed up to the driver's side and looked in. Empty, no one. Not slumped over, not thrown out. Just gone. I checked the passenger side. Empty. I yanked the door open. Nothing. And the worst part, no footprints leading away. The snow around the cab was flawless except for the tire tracks that simply ended. A cold dread sank into my bones, heavier than the temperature. This wasn't possible. I started backing away slowly. Then a voice tore through the night from the trees behind the wreck. "Help! Somebody help me!" Deep, male, raw with panic. My first instinct was to go toward it. That's why I came, right? To help. But every nerve in my body screamed the opposite. Run. I turned and bolted. The voice shouted again. Much closer now. Impossibly close. No human could move that fast through deep snow. I didn't look back. I just ran, lungs burning, until I pounded on Lucas's door like a madman. His dad opened, saw my face, and pulled me inside. They called the police. While we waited, Lucas and I went over it again and again. Maybe the driver walked away before I got there. Maybe I imagined the crash. But I knew what I saw. I knew what I heard. Hours later, the police finally arrived through the storm. Their report hit like ice water. No tire tracks on the road. No wreck. No sign anything had happened. They looked at me like I'd made the whole thing up. I argued, practically begged them to believe me. They left. I stayed at Lucas's that night. Couldn't face the walk back. The next morning, his dad drove me home on freshly plowed roads. I've replayed that night hundreds of times since, and every time I end up in the same place, some things defy explanation, and that terrifies me more than the memory itself. Story 3. Imagine stepping off the last train of the night into a full-blown blizzard and seeing a man standing in the woods ahead, wearing nothing but a t-shirt and shorts, smiling at you like he's been waiting. then charging straight at you with a scream that doesn't sound human. This happened 8 years ago, sophomore year of high school. I went to a private academy in Toronto, which meant a long daily commute by train. Usually I rode with my buddies Oliver and Theo. We'd talk and laugh the whole way. Track season meant late practices, so we often caught crowded evening trains full of tired commuters. That night, the storm hit the second the train left the station. In minutes, it went from light flurries to a whiteout blizzard. The announcement came. Ours was the last train running. After us, the line shut down. Oliver and Theo's stops were close to home, short walks in a busy neighborhood. Mine was different, a lonely platform, then a mile plus through dark woods after crossing an empty highway. I called my parents. Dad said, "Bundle up, be careful, just get home." I waved goodbye to my friends, rode the last leg alone. When the doors opened at my stop, I stepped into a frozen void. Empty platform, swirling snow, lights reflecting off white in an eerie, beautiful glow. Crossing the highway was surreal. Not a single car, not even plows. I stood there a moment, stunned by the stillness. Then I chose the shortcut through the woods. The road would have been safer, but twice as long. I walked head down against the wind. After a while, I looked up, and there he was, 30 yards ahead, right on the path, facing me. Short-sleeved t-shirt, shorts, bare legs, grinning, wide, wrong. My brain stalled. How was he not dead? Before I could move, he let out a guttural scream, inhuman, and charged. I turned and ran. Snow sucked at my boots. I screamed for help into the empty night. He was behind me. I could hear his ragged breathing, his feet pounding closer. The chase felt endless, lungs on fire, legs heavy. Finally, I burst out onto the road. I risked one glance back. He was gone, but the fear didn't leave. My footprints would lead him straight to our house. I stumbled home, burst through the door, told my parents everything. Dad wanted to go out looking. Mom wouldn't let him. Called the police instead. Hours dragged by. I couldn't sleep. His smile kept replaying. Those cracked lips, that manic stare. Then a branch scraped my bedroom window. I got up, pulled back the curtain. He was there, inches from the glass, skin purple and blotchy, bald head, patchy gray beard, eyes locked on mine. I screamed and dropped. Dad rushed in, caught a glimpse of him bolting into the dark. Police came, eventually. The storm slowed them down. By then he was gone. They saw the tracks leading into the woods behind our house and refused to follow at night. Too dangerous. Dad almost got arrested yelling at them. They left. No follow-up, no search. Nothing ever came of it. For months I was terrified in my own home. Every noise at night sent my heart racing. I still don't know what he was. A drifter who shouldn't have survived the cold. Something worse. All I know is that smile, and that I never want to see anything like it again.